Shannon says, Shannon, how about that? Hi, Shannon. Ideas for helping control treat OCD when it comes to asking repeatedly the question where everyone in the family is, including pets. An example, we took our cat to the vet some time ago, and now he asks gray cat at veterinarian, even though he's totally aware that the cat is at home. This happens 10 to 20 times a day for multiple people and animals. And I can see where that would get very frustrating for you guys. And I'm throwing this at you, and there was a lot of details. Anything you want me to repeat? I don't have the age of the child. Shannon, if you have a second and can tell us how old this child is, but repeated questions asking where everyone in the family is, including pets.
So for a lot of these kids, it's multiple reasons they're doing this, and we can only guess until you get to know them better and they're able to. Language is a big issue. Some of our kids are just really social. They're just really social, and they know how to ask these questions, so they just keep asking the same questions because they can't think of another way, something else to ask.
Yeah.
So a lot of times teaching them to ask different questions, teaching them to find information and be able to talk about it really helps replace the repetitive interaction.
Yes.
Some of the times our kids are lacking in language, not just in questions, but they don't know how to say, well, Mom, I was thinking about that time when you took the cat to the vet. What did they do with him? Mm-hmm. But not having the ability to say any of that. So they know how to say gray cat at veterinarian, and that kind of is a little glimpse into their thoughts, but we don't really know what they're thinking of. Other kids will sit there years later and be like, I was just thinking our cat, I love that cat so much, and I'm so sad, or I'm so happy that he's back and he was okay, because, I was really worried back then.
Yeah.
And people know how to talk about all these things about a situation that was in the past, but a lot of our kids lack language.
Yeah.
And they just don't even know how to do any of that, so they just keep repeating the same question over. And if they really like social interaction, they know if they ask a question, you'll probably answer them.
Right, it's attention.
And sometimes there are kids who like the pattern. They know what the answer is going to be, so they ask because they know what's going to come.
Yeah.
So there's multiple functions of the question asking. We don't know what it is, but there's a whole realm. It could be the routine of it. It can be, this is a way I get social interaction. I know, you'll interact with me if I ask this question. It could be they have all these other thoughts, but they don't know how to say it.
Okay.
So it's just back to the one question that they know how to say.
So definitely be looking at what you think they're seeking out,
Mm-hmm.
and try to give it to them in a different way then. So if they're seeking attention and they keep asking the question to get attention, maybe calling them over, giving them attention directed at something else.
Yeah, or just a lot of times for those kids where it's attention, it's where you give attention, just any positive interaction they have, you're just going to give them a lot of attention.
Okay.
So whatever it may be, if they're sitting and playing with their Legos, you're going to be like, wow, look at that structure you built. That was really cool. And it's different from last time.
Right.
It's amazing because it's different.
Right.
Emphasizing that it's not the same structure that you built last time, which is a lot of our kids will do the same things over and over. But giving them attention for things that you think that are more appropriate or different, varied.
Yeah.
So they're able to, when you're giving that attention and that positive interaction, that it's not, they can learn that, it's all these things.
Yeah.
That can get a lot of attention from people and not just this one thing.
I will say that there was a period of time where Jem was driving me crazy because he would ask me the same question over and over and over again. And I began to realize that it was because he was anxious, and the answer I gave often wasn't the right answer, and it was making him anxious. And so we started doing a thing, and it was always in the car. So I looked at what the patterns were, right? And he, for instance, he might say, when are we going to have dinner? And I would say, we're going to get home in a half an hour and we're going to have dinner. Well, at first I realized he doesn't know what a half an hour is. So I would have to put it into terms for him. We're going to be home in one SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yeah.
Right? And he'd be like, oh, okay, that's not that long. But if I said a half an hour, he would just ask the question again, when are we going to have dinner? Because the input of the question didn't get there, and he was having anxiety about it. But so then I learned that if I answered the question and I said, we're going to, in one SpongeBob SquarePants, we're going to have dinner, and then if he asked the question again, that then I would say to him, I would just repeat the question back to him and say, when are we going to have dinner? And he would say, in one SpongeBob SquarePants. And I would say, okay, and sometimes that would quiet the anxiety enough. But then other times we would go through that phase and then we would have to go to the next one. Then I would ask him a question about dinner. What are we having for dinner? Right? And then when he got older, I could say to him, what are you worried about? And then he would answer the question with something like, I'm worried that I want to have this, or I want to have that, and that's not what we're having. And then we would be able to figure out, so the question would stop, but it's like digging and figuring out what's really going on
What's the
here.
purpose? Yeah.
And then I have a friend whose child asks repeated questions for totally different thing. And I have found that with him, if I then bring up something that he really likes, it interrupts the pattern, and then we talk about that. Okay. And that we don't, after he asks the first time, you know, and the question is answered, if he asks again, then if I ask him about something that he's really hyper-focused on, the questions go away. But I also think that's anxiety. I think he's anxious and he's like, I don't know what's happening right now, and nobody's talking to me.
Yeah, and just think about your life if you didn't understand what was coming, ever. We all would be really, really anxious. And I always talk about like the component of language, you know, like giving representation. If you have a concrete learner, try to give a concrete representation.
Right.
So even our kids that, you know, usually if you said, oh, at 7 o'clock we're going to have.
Yeah.
And so yesterday I was on a call and they were like, but he doesn't know what 7 o'clock means and he's really anxious. I was like, it's simple. You teach him, you write the 7 and you get a digital clock and you say when it looks like this.
That's when it happens.
That's when, and there's a whole group of kids who are non-vocal, very challenged, no academics anywhere, all functional learning, but I can teach them what time to take their medication just by matching. When the clock looks like this, go grab this. Go when the clock looks like this, go get this. And it's all just that visual learner of like, okay, when it looks like this, this is what it is. And they don't know what 1 o'clock means, but they know that when it's a 1 with a colon 00 on the digital clock, this is time.
Giving them that structure.